Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're diving into the global mobile energy storage systems market. Not exactly light stuff, but definitely a hot topic. We're going to be pulling straight from the Global Mobile Energy Storage System Market Report 2025.
Yeah, that's right. A pretty dense report.
Oh, yeah, packed with insights. But our goal here is to, cut through the noise and get right to the heart of it. We want to give you the most important takeaways, the future projections, and really help you understand, where this whole mobile energy storage market is right now and where it's headed. Big picture stuff.
It's an exciting space. I mean, the numbers alone are kind of mind-blowing. The report sets the stage with the 2025 global market value, which sits at 57.24 billion USD.
Yeah, that's already a pretty hefty figure.
But then fast forward to 2033, the projections jump to, get this, 177.55 billion USD.
Whoa. That's a massive leap.
It is, and that translates to a CAGR, that's the compound annual growth rate, of 15.20%. So we're talking serious growth potential here.
Yeah, AGR at 15.20%. That's got to get some investors excited.
For sure, it's a signal that this market is really hitting its stride, and there are some pretty clear reasons why.
So what are the key forces driving this kind of expansion? I mean, what's fueling this growth?
Right, so the report highlights a couple of key drivers. One of the most prominent, and maybe this isn't a surprise, is the increasing demand for integrating renewable energy sources.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're seeing more and more solar and wind power coming online.
Exactly. And as we incorporate those energy sources into our grids, we need a reliable way to store the energy.
Right. Because the sun doesn't always shine and the wind doesn't always blow.
That's it. So these mobile energy storage systems, they become essential. They act as a kind of buffer, smoothing out the inconsistencies and ensuring a stable and reliable grid, even when we're dealing with intermittent renewable generation.
Okay. Yeah, that's really crucial as we shift towards a cleaner energy future. So renewables, that's one big driver. What else is contributing to this market surge?
Well, another major factor is the rapidly increasing adoption of electric vehicles. I mean, EVs, they're fantastic for reducing emissions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's talking about EVs these days.
Right. But they also create a huge demand for energy storage, not just within the vehicles themselves, but also for the charging infrastructure.
Oh, yeah. We need to be able to charge all those EVs.
We do. And mobile energy storage, that plays a big role. It can provide mobile charging solutions. It can help support grid stability as more EVs come online.
It's like a whole ecosystem developing around this shift in transportation.
It really is. But, it's not all sunshine and roses. The report does point out some challenges, too.
Okay, yeah. What are some of the headwinds?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is the high upfront cost of these mobile energy storage systems.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Those systems are pretty complex.
They are. And that initial investment cost can be a barrier, especially for smaller businesses or, regions with less developed financial infrastructure.
I see. So it's not equally accessible everywhere.
Not yet. But I think it's also pushing innovation. We're seeing new financing models emerging, like leasing arrangements or shared ownership, which can help make these systems more affordable.
Okay, that's good to hear. There's a push to address that cost barrier.
There is. And then, of course, there's always the environmental question.
Right. What about the disposal of these batteries? What happens at the end of their life?
Exactly. Battery disposal is a big concern. We need to make sure we're handling recycling disposal in a responsible way so we're not creating, new environmental problems.
Yeah, that's a critical piece of the puzzle.
Definitely. But, there are some really interesting developments on the horizon. The report points to some trends that are really worth watching.
Okay, let's hear about the positive stuff. What's looking promising?
Well, one trend that I think is particularly cool is the increasing use of second life batteries.
Second life batteries. What's that?
It's basically taking batteries that are no longer optimal for their initial use, like in an EV, and repurposing them for less demanding applications.
Oh, I get it. So like giving them a second career.
Yeah, exactly. It's a smart way to maximize resource utilization and potentially bring costs down.
That's a really neat approach. It seems like a win-win.
Right. Less waste and more affordable storage.
Like it.
Another interesting trend is the growing popularity of modular and scalable energy storage units.
Okay, so more flexibility.
Exactly. Users can customize their storage capacity to fit their specific needs.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Not at all. You can start small and scale up as your needs change. It's a really adaptable system.
Okay, so that gives us a good sense of the global picture. But I'm curious about how this is playing out in different parts of the world. The report breaks it down by region, and there are some interesting variations.
Right, the regional breakdown is fascinating.
So starting with North America, they're holding the largest market share, over 40%, with a market size of 21.18 billion USD in 2025.
Yeah, North America is really leading the charge.
And their projected CAGR is 13.6%, pretty solid growth. Within North America, the U.S. market itself is huge, 16.71 billion USD with a 13.4% CAGR. Canada's at 2.54 billion USD, 14.4% CAGR, and Mexico's at 1.93 billion USD with a 14.1% CAGR. What do you think is behind North America's leading position in this market?
I think it's a combination of things. They've made early and significant investments in renewable energy infrastructure. They also have strong government support for these initiatives. And, the adoption rate of electric vehicles is pretty high in North America. That it all adds up.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Early adoption and supportive policies seem to be playing a big role.
For sure. And the higher growth rates we're seeing in Canada and Mexico, that probably indicates they're rapidly catching up, expanding their own clean energy initiatives.
Makes sense. So across the Atlantic, what's the situation in Europe?
So Europe represents over 30% of the global market.
Okay.
In 2025, their market size is 16.60 billion USD, and their CAGR is projected at 14.2%.
Okay, so also a major player.
Definitely. And within Europe, you've got some key players like the UK. Their market is at 2.79 billion USD with a 15% CAGR. Germany is at 3.29 billion USD with a 14.4% CAGR. And then you've got France, Italy, even Russia and Spain, all showing strong growth.
It sounds like there's a lot of activity across the whole continent.
There is. Europe is really committed to sustainability. They have ambitious goals for reducing their carbon footprint.
Yeah, I've heard about their aggressive climate targets.
Those targets are driving a lot of innovation and investment in clean energy, including energy storage.
So their commitment to sustainability is a major factor. Okay, what about the Asia-Pacific region?
APAC is a real growth story. They hold about 23% of the global market share. Their market size in 2025 is estimated at 13.74 billion USD.
Okay, so a significant chunk.
But their projected CAGR is the highest, a whopping 18.1%.
Wow, that's huge. They're really taking off.
They are. And within APAC, you've got China leading the way, a market size of 5.77 billion USD with a 17.6% CAGR. Japan's at 1.9 billion USD with a 16.6% CAGR. India is at 1.37 billion USD but has the highest CAGR of 20%.
Wow, 20%.
South Korea and Australia are also seeing substantial growth.
So what's fueling this rapid expansion in APAC?
I think a lot of it comes down to rapid urbanization and industrialization. Energy demand is just skyrocketing in the region.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. As those economies grow, they need more energy.
And many APAC countries are also really pushing for renewable energy adoption. They're looking to diversify their energy mix and address environmental concerns.
So they're kind of hitting it from both sides, increased demand and a push for cleaner sources.
Exactly. And India, with their 20% CAGR, they've set some really ambitious renewable energy targets. And China, they're already a major player in energy storage production.
Yeah, they're often leading the way in manufacturing these technologies.
They are. So all these factors combined, it's creating this perfect storm for growth in APAC.
Okay, so we've got North America, Europe, and APAC as the major players. What about the other regions?
Well, South America holds just over 5% of the global market. Their 2025 market size is 2.18 billion USD, and they're projected to grow at a CAGR of 15.9%.
Okay, so still significant growth.
Definitely. Brazil and Argentina are the key players there.
What's driving their growth?
They're in the midst of a transition to renewable energy sources, and they have a real need to improve energy access, particularly in remote areas. Mobile energy storage is ideal for that.
Yeah, it can bring power to places that the traditional grid can't reach.
Exactly. Then you have the Middle East, which holds about 2% of the global market. Their market size in 2025 is 2.29 billion USD, and they have a CAGR of 16.6%.
Okay, and who are the main players there?
Saudi Arabia and the UAE are leading the way,
Yeah.
and their growth is largely tied to their investments in massive renewable energy projects.
So they need the storage to back up those projects.
Exactly. And then finally, you have Africa. They currently hold about 1% of the global market. In 2025, their market size is 1.26 billion USD, and they're projected to grow at a rate of 15.5%.
Okay, so even though they have a smaller share now, they're still on a strong growth trajectory.
They are. And for Africa, mobile energy storage is particularly important. They have expanding energy needs, and many areas lack access to the traditional grid. Mobile storage can be a real game changer for those communities.
Yeah, it can bring much-needed power to those who need it most.
Absolutely.
So the regional breakdown really highlights how this market is evolving based on, the specific needs and priorities of different parts of the world. It's fascinating to see how those dynamics are shaping the industry. And let's dive a little deeper into some of the market segments. The report breaks down the market by capacity, classification, battery type, system type, and application.
Right, let's unpack those segments.
Starting with capacity, it looks like systems with a capacity below 3,000 kilowatt hour are currently dominating. Just for context, a kWh or kilowatt hour is a measure of energy capacity.
Yeah, the smaller systems are leading the way.
And these smaller systems, they're likely catering to residential and smaller commercial applications. What do you think makes them so popular in those segments?
Well, they're generally more affordable. And they don't require a lot of space, so they're a good fit for homes, small businesses, places where space is at a premium.
Okay, that makes sense. Smaller footprint, easier on the budget.
Right. But the report also shows that the 3,000 to 10,000 kilowatt capacity category is growing the fastest. That range is more for medium-sized commercial and industrial users.
So what's driving that growth? What makes that segment so dynamic?
That size offers a sweet spot. It's a good balance of capacity and cost, and it's scalable. So it's attractive for businesses that want to optimize their energy use, maybe add some backup power, or even integrate their own renewable energy generation.
Okay, so it's hitting that sweet spot for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, it's a versatile option.
Now, looking at the classification of these systems, the report says towable systems are currently holding the largest share.
Towables are great. They're all about mobility and flexibility.
Yeah, you can take them where you need them, whether it's a temporary event, an emergency situation, or even a remote work site.
Exactly. They can be deployed quickly and easily. That's a huge advantage.
But the report also points out that float-in systems are experiencing rapid growth. Those are specifically designed for maritime and offshore applications, right?
Yes. Float-in systems are ideal for those environments. They provide stable storage on the water, and they can help reduce reliance on diesel generators, which is a big plus for, noise and emissions.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So quieter, cleaner operations.
Right. And they're relatively easy to deploy. You just, float them out there.
It sounds like a smart solution for those specific applications. Now, let's talk battery types. The report says lithium-ion batteries are the dominant technology in the mobile energy storage market.
Lithium-ion is the king right now.
I mean, it seems like they're in everything these days.
Yeah, from smartphones to EVs, they're everywhere. And there's a good reason for that. They have a high energy density, meaning they can store a lot of energy in a small package.
Okay, so they pack a punch.
They do. And they're efficient in terms of charging and discharging, and they have a relatively long lifespan. Plus, the costs have been coming down steadily.
So it's a winning combination. High performance and affordability.
Absolutely. But it's not the only player. The report also highlights nickel-cadmium batteries as a fast-growing segment.
Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, it might seem surprising, but nickel-cadmium has some unique advantages. They're extremely durable, and they can withstand extreme temperatures and moisture.
So they're the tough guys.
You could say that, and those characteristics make them really well suited for demanding applications like electric vehicles and hybrid systems, where the batteries are exposed to a lot of stress.
Okay, that makes sense. You need a battery that can handle the bumps and temperature swings. Now, let's look at the system outlook. The report says off-grid mobile energy storage systems are currently holding the largest share of the market.
Off-grid systems are crucial in areas where, there's limited or no access to the traditional power grid.
Yeah, they can bring power to remote communities, disaster relief areas, things like that.
Right. They're all about providing energy access and resilience where it's needed most.
Okay, so they're filling a really vital role.
Yeah.
But the report also indicates that the on-grid segment is growing quickly, too.
Yeah, on-grid systems are becoming more and more important as we add more renewable energy to the grid.
Because we need to balance out those fluctuations in supply.
That's it. They help stabilize the grid and ensure a reliable flow of electricity even when the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing.
So they're like the shock absorbers of the power system.
A good analogy. They smooth out the bumps.
Okay, and finally, let's look at applications. The report says the commercial sector is currently the largest user of mobile energy storage.
Makes sense. Businesses are always looking for ways to manage their energy costs.
Yeah, they want to save money and ensure their operations run smoothly.
And increasingly, businesses are also adopting sustainability goals. Mobile energy storage can help them achieve those goals.
Right. It ties into the whole green initiative.
It does. But the residential sector is also seeing rapid growth.
So more homeowners are getting into energy storage. Why do you think that is?
Well, more and more people are installing solar panels on their homes, and they want to store that energy for later use. Plus, there's a growing desire for energy independence and resilience. People want to be prepared for power outages.
Okay, so it's about self-sufficiency and peace of mind.
Exactly.
So we've got all these different segments within the market, each with its own unique dynamics. It paints a really vibrant picture of this industry. And the report also touches on the competitive landscape. It mentions that the market is highly competitive with both global and regional players. But it highlights a few key players, Greener, LG Energy Solution, and Green Energy Cone as real leaders in the space.
Those are some of the big names, yeah.
What do you think gives them that edge?
Well, they have a wide range of products. So they can cater to a lot of different needs. They have strong distribution networks, so they can reach customers globally. And they're always innovating. They're constantly developing new technologies and improving their products.
So they're staying ahead of the curve.
That's key in this market.
And the report even mentions some recent activities from these companies. For example, LG Energy Solution announced in October 2024 that they're planning to ramp up their U.S. energy storage battery production starting in 2025.
That's a big move.
Yeah, it seems like they're really betting on the North American market.
They are. And it probably reflects a broader trend we're seeing of companies wanting to regionalize their supply chains, to reduce risk and potentially take advantage of government incentives.
Okay, yeah, I've heard about those initiatives.
And back in September 2024, LG Energy Solution also launched a new brand called Be Around, focused on battery management.
Battery management, what's so important about that?
Well, as these systems become more complex and more widely deployed, battery management becomes absolutely critical.
So it's about ensuring safety and efficiency.
Exactly. It's about maximizing performance and extending the lifespan of the batteries. And offering those kinds of comprehensive solutions, it gives those companies a real competitive advantage.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into the global mobile energy storage systems market. Thanks for walking us through all this information. I think the key takeaway here is that this market is poised for huge growth globally and across all the different segments we talked about.
Couldn't agree more.
The demand for renewable energy integration and the need for greater grid stability are just, pushing this market forward. And those impressive projected growth numbers, that CAGR of 15.2%, it really highlights the scale of this opportunity.
And the potential impact it can have.
Absolutely. So as we wrap things up, here's a final thought for everyone listening. Think about how these trends in mobile energy storage might affect your own lives. How could it change the way you use energy, the choices you make about technology, or even, your investment decisions? This whole shift towards mobile and flexible energy, it's just getting started, and it's going to have far-reaching consequences. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.